So the Secret Service director was grilled by AOC. Now, the thing is, this is one of those rare moments where AOC's kind of being competent. I know. Look. Sometimes a broken clock can be right twice a day. Okay? Sometimes. Well, again, twice a day. Broken clock is right twice a day. But there has been recent reports of the epic failure that was the site security operations that the Secret Service did when what took place in Butler, Pennsylvania, of the near assassination attempt of Donald Trump. And AOC, of all people, grilled the United States Secret Service director. So, without further ado, I think it's only fair that we play this video because the thing is, more and more people are asking questions of how this happened, why this happened, and overall, what is the operational status of the United States Secret Service? Because as it stands right now, this administration has been fumbling the ball when it comes down to protecting presidential candidates that are running for the office of the highest land.
Chair recognizes Mr. Ocasio-Cortez from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Cheadle, respectfully, what you had just laid out about 60 days. We are currently in the midst of an especially concentrated presidential campaign in the moment. That is also paired with, of course, elections happening across the country. They're happening in about 100 days. So the notion of a report coming out in 60 days when the threat environment is so high in the United States, irrespective of party, is not acceptable. And I think it's very important to understand that. This is not theater. This is not about jockeying. This is about the safety of some of the most highly targeted and valued targets internationally and domestically in the United States of America. So the idea that a report will be finalized in 60 days, let alone prior to any actionable decisions that would be made, is simply not acceptable.
Now, apparently, this is the kind of behavior that is acceptable because, and I'll tell you why, this is how our government responds to all sorts of issues. There's something that takes place. There is a, 60-day investigation period, and nothing is done. What's going to happen during those 60 days is busy paperwork. Now, people have questions, and let's be very clear here. If something went wrong, let's say what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, sorry for that. Let's say it went south. I'm confident enough to say that things would be very different right now. And all responsibility falls upon the Secret Service. The fact that there was such a lazy attempt to even do proper site security around the area says a lot about the entire organization and its director.
It has been 10 days since an assassination attempt on a former president of the United States, regardless of party. There need to be answers. Again, this party, this committee, this is not a moment of theater. We have to make policy decisions, and we have to make them now. We do. And that may be and that may require legislation. That may require policy that we must pass in the immediate term. And without that, we are flying blind. So the lack of answers and the lack of report is just simply not something that we can accept here. Director Cheadle, is there a standard perimeter that the Secret Service establishes around an event, or are those perimeters independently determined per event and scenario?
There is no standard. Every event and every venue is different and treated as such.
So each event has a different perimeter that is established depending on the logistics of that event. Now, you established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15.
Now, to be clear here, there have been a couple of gun YouTubers who've been actually able to break down the type of weapon or the variation of the AR-15 that was used during that horrific day. And to be very clear here, not only was the shooter completely incompetent, but it was a very piss poor quality version of that AR-15. But the fact that even with such a high profile target area, that none of the roofs were properly secured, none of the areas were properly scouted ahead, and the fact that it seemed as though it was perhaps a hands-off approach by the Secret Service. So just one has to wonder the operations, who was running everything, why were things allowed to take place, and the very fact that there is video evidence out there showing Trump supporters yelling at police and other agents that, hey, there's a suspicious guy on the roof. And they were being ignored.
In order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advanced.
Director, you should be able to answer this question. But don't worry, there's going to be a second part to this story. Not only do other members of Congress call for a resignation, but so many others call her out and say that she's full of shite.
Was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
And so what I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass.
I want to acknowledge this chat right here. Heartlands Media, AOC is actually a capable inquisitor. Hey, careful. Don't want to besmirch the name of good inquisitors out there. When she wants to be, rather when she's not working for the establishment against the interests of the people, which is most of the time.
Shootings from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
A perimeter was established, and even though there were buildings that were outside of that perimeter, it wasn't just that building. There were a number of buildings in the area, and there was overwatch that was created to help mitigate some of those buildings.
Respectfully, Dr. Cheadle, as well, as a person who has experienced an enormous amount of threat incidents, including incidents that have never been reported publicly.
Look, I'm not denying that, but sometimes, look, what's most notably was force a vote when people were asking her to, hey, you and the other congressmen and women force a vote, be a united voting bloc. She goes on to say, especially to people like Jimmy Dore, this is violence, okay? Words are violence. I kind of roll my eyes in the back of my head when I hear that. Now, let's be clear here. AOC is a very high-profile person, so yes, it comes with the territory, unfortunately, where there are unhinged people who do threaten the lives of politicians, celebrities. It shouldn't surprise anybody. But yeah, I think we all can agree. Sometimes when you hear stuff like this, you're like, okay. But remember, she is a politician, and there are people who are just not all there in the head. Case in point, what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Publicly. There is a common pattern that happens here, whether it's Secret Service, FBI, Capitol Police, local departments. After a critical security failure, we often hear there will be an independent investigation. That independent investigation gets set up. Usually the expectation is between 2 to 3 months after the incident, and then nothing really occurs from there. The report is usually not satisfactory to the questions that are usually being raised here. And most importantly, corrective action is rarely taken. My if I were to state anything that I think is profoundly important, is that we need to have answers to the public. Ideally, I would encourage you and the agency to be more forthright with the members that still have yet to have their questioning, because the public deserves to have full confidence and the stakes are too high.
Now, I will say this. AOC was probably the most reasonable person here. That she was probably the kindest person here to the director. But to be very clear here, she is asking very legitimate questions that the director, and this was just the first wave of questions, that the director failed to properly answer, or either that give a real concise reason why the Secret Service failed to do proper site security. Now, I say this because I served in the Marine Corps, and my unit, we did site security on our first tour. And the thing is, you have to take everything into account, even stuff that's not in the perimeter. Even stuff that's not in the perimeter, because you only can cover so much. And each operation is different. That is very true. Each venue is different. But you have to know the area and what lies beyond your perimeter area in order to provide efficient security for said profile person or site location. The Secret Service director could barely even answer AOC's beginning questions. And this is just the beginning, all right, for this segment.
The violence that could break out in this political moment, regardless of party, in the event of someone getting hurt, constitutes a national security threat to the entire country. Thank you, and I yield back.
Could I go back to something you
Yes,
said?
please. Feel free, Director.
Ma'am, if I could just speak to something you said at the outset when you started your questioning. I want to assure you and everyone on this committee that I'm not waiting for a report to take action. We have been conducting analysis all along, and we have been adding additional features to our security details since this incident occurred.
And I'd hope you can highlight and illuminate what some of those are in the event of other members questioning as well.
Very good.
To which, here is what the director has said. This is from RT. We failed. So the attempted assassination of former U.S. President Donald Trump was the biggest Secret Service failure in decades, and no one has been held accountable for it, Director Kimberly Cheadle told Congress. A would-be assassin fired several bullets at Trump during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania earlier this month. The Republican presidential candidate narrowly escaped death, but 2 people were injured and 1 was unfortunately killed. That was a firefighter there protecting his family. The Secret Service solemn mission is to protect our nation's leader. On July 13th, we failed. You know what? Even the Praetorian Guard of ancient Rome has a better track record, and that's not saying much. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe I'm going too far. I take full responsibility for any security lapse, Cheadle told lawmakers, describing the Butler shooting as the most significant operational failure at the Secret Service in decades. Well, Jesus Christ, Secret Service, you know, your track record ain't too cash money right now, okay? Secret Service, don't be the Boeing, okay? You don't want to be a Boeing. Most Republican lawmakers and at least one Democrat noted that the Secret Service director had resigned following the 1981 attempt on President Ronald Reagan. So Cheadle's interpretation of full responsibility seemed unusual at the very least. Cheadle vowed to cooperate with the investigation to what happened and move heaven and earth to ensure it doesn't happen again, but revealed under oath that not a single Secret Service employee has been disciplined or dismissed over the Butler incident. That is absolutely insane. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable behavior, not only by the Secret Service, but it says a lot overall of, well, who's really giving all the orders here? Because as we have called out on this show, especially with Biden's decline and Biden's inability to really be an effective leader, we have to wonder who's running the operations in the White House. After all, we've seen Biden get protected and dragged along. So who's giving the orders, especially most notably when Secret Service protection was denied to RFK Jr. and other candidates that are running for the highest office of land? AOC, for the first, first time in a long time, seems coherent enough to ask some proper questions. Now, let's be clear. It's all one big game. It's all one big show. And perhaps this time around, AOC got one hell of a script to seem, well, on point. Now, I don't know what's really going to be happening at the end of the day with our wonderful director, Director Cheadle, because she puts the cheat in Cheadle, right? She is not resigning or stepping down. This is an absolute embarrassment. And the fact that she couldn't even answer these simple, basic questions from AOC is what's going to lead to her eventual downfall from other members in that same hearing. Folks, there's something bigger going on here. And there's an issue that we all have to take into account, and that is there's no one taking responsibility in Washington, D.C. This is nothing new to us. We have seen this before. And yet, what seems to be the main thing by a lot of our institutions at the federal level, at the state level, from our politicians to our media, is failure. Failure to follow through. Failure for people to do their jobs. And failure to almost stop something. The thing is, this shouldn't have happened at all. That kid should never have been anywhere near that area. The fact that you had Secret Service not even properly do its job in site security around that area. People's lives were at risk. So much could have gone wrong that day. Everybody got lucky. The next time, there won't be a next time.